Welcome. 23 camp. How we doing? Good? I'm doing good too. Excited. Just to see the guys here and just finished our medical meeting, which is a mandatory part of camp every year, and we'll get ready to, do our last bit of the conditioning run with the guys just reported. But excited to see everybody. Obviously, a very exciting time here. Get ready to go for year two, and a lot of work between now and the season. But I know everybody's eager and anxious to get out there. So.
Josh, Eugene passed the physical. Are there any restrictions on him at all in the training camp, or is it just full go?
No, there aren't. We'll do what we always do with players that are coming off of any type of rehabilitation. Is we'll just we'll do it the right way. So it might not be 100% of the repetitions first day and et cetera, but we would never do that with anybody. So there's a number of players obviously that had things in the spring, and making sure that we're just smart about how we reintegrate them to the the totality of practice and training camps for everybody to get a lot of repetitions anyway. No player at any position would get that kind of a majority of the reps anyhow. So this is where we have to put in the majority of our time so that we can build fundamentals across the board, build the depth of our football team. So it shouldn't affect us that much, but excited for him to be out there. I know he's excited to be out there with his teammates too.
Josh, obviously Jimmy's going to be judged on wins and losses. I understand that. But quick question. When he went to San Francisco, he won his locker room quick. And then he comes here and talking to the players this offseason, not in OTA, not minicamp, but he won them already, out spending time with them, being with them. What is it about Jimmy that allows him to relate so well to his locker room as a leader?
I think, you have to care about the person, and I think Jimmy gives a lot of time and effort into, conversations, non-football related, and, I think that would be the same if it was you and I or any other two people trying to get to know one another, and it's how much you put into it, how much you care about, where they came from, what their family situation's like, where they're at in their life or their career. I think that's important for anybody that's trying to create relationships, and especially at the position of quarterback in the NFL, where you want to be a leader on your football team. You have to be an elite communicator on the field, and so to be able to try to do that and establish those kind of relationships is important. So I'll let the players speak for that, in terms of how they feel and what he has or hasn't done or anything like that. But I feel comfortable with who he is and the way he goes about that.
Obviously, Jimmy played with you, under you before when he was with the Patriots, but he spent several years in another system. What went into that sort of reacclimation process with him being here in OTA, sort of not relearning it, but kind of getting back used to being in your offense?
Yeah, it was a fun process because honestly, I any player that has played significantly, or a significant amount of time somewhere else for a coach that I respect tremendously. It's always interesting to hear some of the things that they did or how they called something or other things that maybe we don't do that, they did well and he likes. So it was really a good back and forth in that regard. I think most of the terminology, I don't want to say it's like riding a bicycle, but if you spent 4 years doing something, and then you change languages a little bit, you come back to it. Eventually, you pick back up where you were. So I think I don't want to say it's seamless or not. We'll see together here as we go. But generally speaking, I think the terminology is, I've said this before, is kind of overblown in general. We all run, something similar to one another. We just maybe call it a little bit different name. So I feel very comfortable with his ability to do that, to speak it, to talk it, to help his teammates. And I'm looking forward to seeing him out there doing it.
You guys made Marcus Peters official yesterday, signing him to the one-year deal. How big of an impact, especially with his history of being able to create turnovers, do you think he'll have on the defense?
Yeah, it's an exciting opportunity, and Marcus has been a very decorated player for the entirety of his career for the teams that he's played for, and he's always been a guy that, I've coached against him a number of times, and when you're playing against him, You always know where he's at because there's a chance you might not want to throw at him, you know. And again, players earn that opportunity and earn that status, not coaches or anybody else. And you know, he's a very intelligent football player. He had multiple opportunities to sit down and talk with him. Very bright, understands the game, really a mature, intelligent guy in terms of defensive structure, coverages, reading route patterns, etc. Very impressed with that, and he wants to be a Raider, you know, and so it was exciting for us to be able to make that happen, and excited to put him in with our group, and I know he's eager to get to work.
Josh, obviously the situation with Josh Jacobs isn't quite resolved yet, but due to some concerns he had, along with the other best running backs in the league, they held a Zoom meeting and seemed to be, you know, worried about the value of the running back position not being valued properly. And what's your thoughts on their meeting and some of the concerns coming out of that meeting?
Well, obviously, I can't speak for anything that happened in the meeting. I wasn't privy to any of that. But look, I respect every player's right to try to do what's best for them. That's why, you know, the league is what it is in terms of value and contracts, and you know, those things are personal. We all have to go through them. I understand it. I've said it, you know, multiple times this spring. I respect him tremendously. Have a great deal of respect for him as a player, as a person, what he did for our team last year, and you know, I look forward to seeing him, you know, whenever he is here. And I respect that process too. You know, it's his decision to make, and you know, I know they all have to do what they think is best for them. You know, and that's like I said, we all have to do those things in our lives, and I have a great deal of respect for him.
Growth for a player comes in from year 1 to year 2. Can you talk about Zamir White and Neil Fair and what they bring to the table in terms of coming into the sophomore season?
Yeah, I mean, there's a number of guys, obviously, that are coming into their second year for us. You know, you mentioned a couple of them, but obviously we have a lot of players that are entering their second year. You know, you hope for that, what you just mentioned. You know, our job is to try to get them to improve every year, regardless of, you know, which year it is, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, 1 to 2, 4 to 5, 7 to 10, you know, whatever it is. So we'll try to do the best we can. I know that our guys that are coming into their second year spent a lot of time at the facility this offseason, really invested themselves in a full offseason program, because, you know, when you're a rookie, you come in a little later, about a month later than the veterans do. So I think a lot of the reasons why you see some of those jumps is they actually get a full year. They actually understand what is OTAs. They understand what is minicamp. They understand what training camp's like. So they're understanding their wisdom. You know, they have some now, you know, because they've gone through it. So looking forward to all those guys getting out there and competing and improving.
Josh, what is the latest, Josh, right now then with Josh Jacobs?
There's nothing. I mean, again, we worked. I know Dave and Tom worked feverishly with his representation last week to, you know, do what they could. And again, I've said it before. I respect his decision to ultimately not sign a deal at that point. So, you know, right now, I mean, it is what it is. There hasn't been much since then, since the deadline, and you know, certain things can change. Obviously, we know that, but you know, that's obviously a lot of his decision, and I respect, you know, whatever he chooses to do. That's his choice, you know, and so I look forward to seeing him when we see him.
Like a change with Saquon and the Giants today.
Yeah, I don't know all the detail. I was here doing a bunch of stuff, so I'm not exactly sure of the ins and outs on that, but anything can certainly change in that regard, you know. And look, I'm a coach. I'd love to have every one of them here, and that's just obviously a preference of ours, so we can, you know, work with each player. But you know, when that is, we'll see.
How do you balance trying to get all your work in with the heat out there?
Follow the medical advice. We just had a part of that meeting we just had was dedicated to that, the climate and understanding the heat. And so we have an incredible indoor facility, and if we ever enter into that danger zone, they have a very scientific way to measure it that I'm not really qualified to speak intelligently about. But I understand when they tell me that we've entered into a zone where it's dangerous to be out there, with helmets, pads, etc., then we'll do the right thing. We'll use the cool boxes on a regular basis during the course of practice anyway, just to prevent the body temperature from going into a range where we don't want it to go into. But our medical team has done a great job of trying to handle that, manage that. They did it last year in training camp, and we'll use the indoor facility as we need to protect our players.
Josh,
Timeline for Tyree Wilson?
No timeline, but it's he's headed in the right direction, no question about it. Excited about that, and this is again just a process that we expected based on what was happening at the time we drafted him. So we knew that there was going to be a rehabilitation process, and then there's going to be a reacclimation phase here. So he's doing a great job of everything that he's doing right now, and once he's ready to roll, then we'll re-enter him into practice the right way, and then get him ready to go for the regular season.
How about Byron Young?
Say it again.
How about Byron Young?
Just again, no timeline, but he's doing everything the right way, and hopefully, like I said, hopefully he'll be out there soon enough.
Josh Jacobs extended under Redford last year. For a lot of reasons, the season just never got off track or on track because of injuries and whatnot. How excited are you about just getting him back and getting him acclimated into your system, into this offense?
Yeah, we spoke this morning. Super excited, and anytime you have a player, that go battles through a bunch of the injuries that Hunter did last year and the stuff that prevented him from being on the field, you have some extra motivation as a coach, to see it through and make sure that he comes back and has the type of season he's capable of having, which we all know what that is. We've seen that before. So I know he's excited. He's ready to go. He's healthy. He had a good off season. And so again, we can't predict anything, but I know what Connor's capable of. I know what he what he means to our team. I know how excited he is to perform well and try to help us win, and that's what we're geared towards too.
Coach, obviously you guys had a little bit of break between OTAs after training camp. Just from personal experience, what's the best advice that you can give your guys, your players, and your staff of being mentally and physically ready to go into training camp?
Yeah, I think physically to try to maintain the shape and conditioning that you've earned the right to be in when OTAs in the spring ends. You don't want to just sit on the couch and do nothing for a month and a half and lose that. They've worked hard to get into that point of the year, and that's we do everything to be in condition to be able to go out there and play when training camp comes. So that's the first thing, but also to get your get your mind away from football, enjoy your family and relax, take some stress off your day-to-day routine, and do things that you have the opportunity and the right to do at this time of the year, and then when you're ready to go to come back, hopefully they report and they're refreshed and excited and rejuvenated and recharged. I think our staff did that a couple of days ago, and you could see that, and I think the players reported much the same.
You answered a few questions last year on your offensive line each week. What do you want to see most from that unit coming into camp? And I know there's position battles.
Yeah.
But what do you want to see improvement, and where do you want to see that unit as a whole and the people who will protect Jim?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing you want, our offensive line to do is, they want to compete out there. They're not going to always, like as you saw last training camp, they won't always be beside the same guy the entire camp. That's by choice. That we want to make sure that we work through that, the different combinations that we might have to play with. Communication is really important for those guys. We've talked a lot about the continuity that we have from last year to this year. I've added a couple new faces up there, but generally speaking, most of those guys are back. And that gives them an opportunity to work as a unit the way we want them to work. They're obviously always a determinant of how tough your football team is. Your ability to run the football, your ability to protect the passer. Offensive lines, don't get enough credit for all the things that happen, offensively. And so, we have a lot of confidence in our group. Excited to see them go out and compete with one another. Excited for the joint practices that we'll have coming up eventually here. We always learn a lot about our football team then, and it's a good opportunity for you find out kind of some of the areas where you're strong and where you might need some help or some work in those practices as well. So I'm excited for that group. They had a great spring. I think they're ready to go. They're healthy, and they look good. So see how it goes.
Dave has delivered you a roster with depth at a lot of positions. There's going to be a lot of competition. Does that just make camp better when everybody's, well, not everybody, there's a handful that aren't.
Yeah.
That are competing?
I think it makes us all better. I mean, when you know that there's guys in your room that are trying to earn playing time that would otherwise go to you, it just makes you work that much harder, makes you study and prepare hard. And so I think we've always tried to do that as much as we could, and at every position. Some positions, as you guys know, changed a little bit more than others this spring and this off season. But I think we've tried to build competition at every spot we could. And then now is the time for them to go out there and get opportunities and determine what their role is going to be, and we've always told them that their role will be what they make it, and that means that they get opportunities, and what they do with it's important.
We'll do a few more. We'll go Adam, you, Vinny, and to Sean.
Obviously, a lot of new faces are in the room, but your second year. Can you kind of measure where your team is now, where you want them to be compared to where they were last year entering training camp?
Again, measuring them at this point is hard, because all we've done is go through 8 practices in shorts. But I think that you can learn some things as you go through the off season about our ability to communicate, our ability to make adjustments. I think some of the guys that were here before, they would, I don't want to speak for them, but I would say it's probably, they feel, a little bit more comfortable just in terms of, what word do I use here? How do I communicate with my teammate? Their knowledge of what's going on a play-to-play basis, their understanding of situational football. I'd hope that has improved just with another year and more experience. And then the new guys that have come in have had a great attitude and approach. So each year is different. I mean, honest to God, like this is 23 for me, and every year there's no 2 years that have been anywhere near the same, and you're going to hit some adversity. Some years you're healthier than others. Some years you're not. Some years you start a little better. Some years you finish better. I think our team in general is fairly healthy, excited, ready to go, has a great attitude and approach. They had a great mindset in the spring. They really work hard, and so I know they're eager for this to get started.
You were talking about competition. Does that go the same for like defensive goals, like sacks, pressures, turnovers? And obviously not asking for a number, but is there a certain kind of target that you guys have to get these guys fired up and have something to aim for?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it very early in the offseason about, either touching the ball or getting the quarterback, and I think any good defense does those things, and so our goal each week will obviously be to try to create, disruption, turnovers, negative plays. Some weeks are harder to do that than others based on who we're playing and the type of the way they play. So, but I know our defense, our staff has really tried to identify some ways for us to improve. Dave and his personnel staff have done a good job of giving us some different types of players with different skill sets here to try to go out there and utilize those. So every team goes through changes. We've had changes on defense, and obviously we're going to try to address some of the things that maybe we weren't as good at last year. Different year, different team, different training camp. So I think we got a lot of work ahead of us in order to become, whatever it is ultimately we're going to become. But those certainly are things that you want to be good at on defense.
Josh, along those lines, obviously 17 games are going to ultimately define what this group is all about. But as you sit here today, do you feel like you have a pretty good handle on what this team might end up being?
Were you asking for a prediction, Vinny? I mean, like I said, I think the best place we can be right now is we're eager, we're excited, I think we have a genuine good feeling about one another in the locker room. I think that there's a lot of competition. I think they're ready to go out there and perform, compete with one another, eventually compete with somebody else here in a couple weeks. And ultimately you get to the point, whatever the highest point we can get to here in 6 weeks before we play a first game. That'll be one point. And then obviously the season is not, it's not, you don't start there and then stay there. We got to try to improve as we go through the year. So we're going to look at it as a process. We're going to try to hold everyone accountable to a high standard and try to do things a little better each week, each day, and, keep building, and hopefully, as we've talked about in the past, play our best football at the end.
Josh, obviously there's a lot of factors that go into offensive success, but quarterback is, it's generally considered the biggest one. What did you see from Jimmy the last few years, just as he became a starter with the 49ers, that gave you confidence that he could help elevate your offense to the next level?
Yeah, there's a lot of things that a quarterback's responsible for, and so, Jimmy's generally always taken care of the football. He's been a player that's performed well under pressure. He's played in some significant games in some big situations. He's done what's, some weeks it was throw it a little bit more, some weeks it wasn't, He's had some responsibility to get him in and out of some plays, which most quarterbacks do, and he's generally done a decent job of that. He's a good thrower of the football, so there's a lot of things that any quarterback that wins is going to do a lot of things well, and there's a lot of guys in the NFL that have done it. Jimmy's done it as well, and I know we'll try to see if we can't replicate some of the success he's had. That's obviously why we have him. We're excited about the things that he does well. I know he's eager to try to improve on some things that maybe he didn't feel he was, ready to do at a high level, and we'll try to address those and identify those as we go. But, he's generally given his football team an opportunity to win. And I think the most important number for me at that position, it's really the only one I care about, is, does he get wins on the board? And generally he has done that.
Great. Thank you, Coach.
Good to go? Okay, thanks. Yep. You got it.